Hey folks, this is Matt Rainwater here, and today I'm going to do some inking on a commission that I'm working on right now. This was the commission I talked about last week, I believe. It's for, or it's based off of the Kick-Ass movies. So I'm just going to do this one. I'm going to ink this character here. His name is Dave in the movies, in the comics, in the storyline in general. Um, there you go. And I'm using a different ink brush than I would normally use today, because usually I use what is it called? Something pen, textured pen. That's what it's called. Today I'm using Big Tex, and I'm using it because I want to go for something with less texture, more just kind of more of a streamlined line or a smoother line. Um, just to do it differently, just so it looks, I don't know, I want it to look different. uh, it's an opportunity. This commission, in my mind, seemed like an opportunity to try some new things. Which, I mean, it's not like rocking the boat that much in my mind, but you know, sometimes it's nice to do something differently. Anyway, I hope that whatever's going on for y'all, that it's going well. And I also want to thank a new Patreon contributor. This time it is. Hold on, I was thinking about it because are there two? I think last video I thanked Art of the Bart, but this this week, I guess, I'd like to thank Danielle Rainwater, who is my sister. So that's pretty pretty easy. Thanks, Danielle, and I have a sketch I'm going to be working on for her pretty soon. By the way, my sister, she makes t-shirts. She designs t-shirts. And I help her with some of the designs. There are a couple of the designs that she prints that I have made, designed, etc. She does a lot of them herself. If you're into stuff in the psychedelic community, um, things such as that, you might like her stuff. Just weird stuff, um, fun stuff, the kind of stuff that, I'm into, she's into. Um, Anarchist politics. Anyway, my point is, if you're into that stuff, go check out nobrow.apparel.com. She's got a lot of t-shirts that she's working on right now, and you can go see some of the designs we've worked on individually or also together. And what else is going on? So there's the t-shirts. There's not a whole lot, actually. It's been, I mean, it's just been kind of workaday life for myself lately. Um, I am making a point of watching, kind of, right now I've been watching a movie every night almost. The movies I usually choose are free to watch on YouTube type movies, which for a while I was like, oh, this is like the bottom of the barrel kind of stuff. And it turns out that they have some decent movies that you can watch for free on YouTube. I think recently I talked about Stolen. That was a Nicolas Cage movie that is while it is cheesy, it's actually I enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. Fantastic cheesy 90s style action movie. But that being said, there are some other really good movies that you can find on there. One such movie that I watched recently was called Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and it's directed by Frank Oz, and if that name sounds familiar to you, Frank Oz is he's the guy who was the puppeteer for Yoda in Star Wars, and he's been a puppeteer for. I want to say he was a Jim Henson puppeteer. I don't know. I would not rely on my quotation of that, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. But it looks like he made a movie somewhere around the late 90s. I actually don't know the date this movie was made, but it stars Michael Caine and Steve Martin. And I'm not like, I don't know. Steve Martin movies are pretty hit and miss for me. Like, I enjoy The Jerk. It's a pretty funny movie. It's a very ridiculous movie. And I enjoy Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And his role in it is a very Steve Martin role. But to go further into it, basically the plot is Michael Caine plays this wealthy thief or con artist. Maybe that's a better way to put it. He's a con artist, and his con is that he finds wealthy, corrupt, single women, widowers, or widows, etc., and basically like romances them and convinces them that he is a prince of some made up country, and like basically scams them out of their money by being like, oh, I need money for the freedom fighters for my country, etc., etc. So it's interesting too, because his character is like, there's a certain noble aspect to him in that he has like a code of ethic in his scams. Like, he only scams from women that are, like I was saying earlier, corrupt, or they're wealthy from their corruption that they participated in, etc. Whereas Steve Martin, his character plays this another scam artist, but he has pretty much zero scruples. And so that's kind of the dynamic that the movie sets off with. And Steve Martin's character sort of ends up finding out like just how wealthy Michael Caine's character has become from his operation, and essentially kind of, I wouldn't say blackmails, but sort of coerces Michael Caine into teaching him like teaching him the ropes, essentially, or how he's doing it. And hilarity ensues from there. It's definitely like one of those movies where it's like this event leads to this event, and the ending's great. I love the ending for it. It's very rare that I watch a movie, especially like very, more contemporary movies, where I feel like the ending, I got everything I wanted, and this is one of those movies that actually did it, and it did it very successfully. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to say how. I would just recommend checking it out if you have the time. It's a fun movie. It's a movie it's a product of its time, so there are some things in there that might be, not 100%, but it's great. What else have I watched? I watched Ronin the other day. It's a 90s action movie that takes place in, I want to say, Paris, France. Stars Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, who's like kind of a famous French action movie star. You may, if you've ever seen it, you may know him from, I think it's called Leon the Professional. That's the one that I remember him from. I know he's been in other movies, but that's the one that I remember him the most from, because I like Jean-Luc Besson movies. But Ronin was all right. Like, it's not bad at all. It's interesting too because the most boring scenes in that movie are like the gunfight scenes, but it is made up by the fact that the car chases in that movie are fantastic. Like part of the tension of the car chases in that movie are I'm not even gonna give the plot. You don't even really need to know it. I mean, basically mercenaries still try and steal a thing for some people, and uh, hilarity ensues. And so I would say part of the reason why the car chases in that movie are so good is that a lot of the environments that they are have these car chases take place in are in these like tight French, like very old world French streets. So it's like these cars are barely fitting into the alleyways and are like going full blast. Like it's actually not something I've seen in modern movies. I mean, maybe I'm just not watching the right ones or whatever. But if you're into that sort of an action movie, might be up your alley. Like I said, it's all right. It definitely kept my attention, but it wasn't like amazing or anything. Let's see. Last night I watched Over the Top, which is this old. I mean, I say old. It's an '80s movie, and it stars Sylvester Stallone, and that's the only name you would recognize. And basically, Sylvester Stallone plays an 18-wheeler or a trucker, an 18-wheeler driver, a trucker, and an independent trucker. It's a very 80s movie, so it's kind of there's sort of I wouldn't say anti-union. It's just like clearly they picked Sylvester Stallone as an independent trucker as the main character for a reason. Like not to be an overt political message, but it's clearly just like whoever wrote the script was probably not into unions. Anyway, point being, Sylvester Stallone is this independent trucker who is reconnecting with his son, who he hasn't seen in like 10 years. And I guess they don't really give this too much of the story away, but messy marriage, divorce, blah blah blah. And the movie's primarily about him reconnecting with his son, and surprisingly, some of the moments are really heartfelt and touching, and then other moments feel like I'm watching The Karate Kid, because the other major plot of the movie is that Sylvester Stallone, as a truck driver, is also an arm wrestler. So he's going around from truck stop to truck stop, doing his job, but also at a lot of these truck stops getting into arm wrestling competitions with guys who have major grudges against him and whatever. The movie, I would say, if there's any reason to watch the movie, it would be for the arm wrestling montage at the last I'd say 30 minutes of the film. It's actually a really well put together montage. It's probably the best part of the movie, and it's very like it's very cinematic in the way that it's done. It's also very 80s. Like, imagine like some power ballad rocking through your stereo as large bulky men are yelling and passionately yelling about their victories, slamming their opponent's arm to the table. And I would recommend it for that. I don't know if I would like I said, parts of the actual like emotional plot are surprisingly and oddly touching in moments, but it does not carry the film particularly well. Like, it does an okay job, and some moments are better than others. Anyway, if you want a cheesy movie to watch on a Saturday night, while you're like while you're drinking whiskey, which was what I was doing, might be a movie for you. And what else? And then the other, let's see, Friday night, I think it was Friday night, I watched this movie called Red Sun. It's a Western starring Charles Bronson, and I wish I could remember the name of the guy who plays the samurai, because he was a really good actor. He's a Japanese actor. And, but basic premise of that one is Charles Bronson robs a train with his train robber buddy who's French, and his name is Gauche. And Gauche basically is like he's a very specific kind of character type that you don't just see in westerns. You see in a lot of like movies starring where the main characters are thieves, where it's like you have the thief who's Stalin actually did this, where you have the thief who is he's still a thief, so his morals are pretty loose, but he has boundaries as to like how far he'll go. And then there's the other guy who like has zero boundaries and will do whatever, sometimes for no reason at all, just because he's a jerk, kind of a thing. So anyway, Gauche is that kind of character type of he's a jerk and will just do it because. And so Gauche, on this train that they rob, there is an ambassador from Japan, and this is taking place like, I'll say quote unquote Wild West times, which could mean anywhere between 1860 and 1890. But I would guess it's probably post Civil War. So I am not very good with dates, but around that time, I would say, let's guess and say 1870, around that time. And so they're robbing this train, and they go to this one compartment where a Japanese ambassador is, and he's guarded by two samurai. And Gauche kills one of the samurai, who was basically trying to keep Gauche from stealing the ambassador's stuff. And one of the things that they had in that compartment is this samurai sword that was, or I say samurai sword, I'll just say katana, that was intended for the President of the United States as a gift from the ambassador. And Gauche steals it, and something I think I missed this part. Something happened to Charles Bronson's character where he gets knocked unconscious, and so he's basically taken captive by the other remaining samurai guard. And that samurai guard is basically like, "Hey, you're coming with me, and we're gonna go find your buddy because I need to get that sword as my sworn duty for my liege." And so they do that. And the initial part of that movie is actually kind of not that interesting. It's very much like gags of Charles Bronson trying to get away from the samurai by like fooling him, or like there's this one moment where he pushes him down a cliff, and I was like, well, this guy's surely dead. There's no way he could survive that, but somehow he survives because I guess he's a expert tumbler, and like it looked like a pretty steep cliff. I don't know. So anyway, they do that, and eventually they get to finding Gauche, and then the rest of the movie becomes like, as the kids say, problematic, because it's the majority of the antagonism becomes about a band of Cherokee, and they just end up in the movie like it's I feel like it's such a cheap Western plot, because you can already have like an interesting plot in Westerns, just about the character dynamic. I mean, not gonna deny, like, there's no denying that, like, there was a lot of fighting that happened between, you know, people from the United States and the rest of the nations that, were living on that land and to whom that land belonged to rightfully, right? But I'm just kind of zone out on those sort of Western plots because they're very rarely done well. That's where I'm coming from. It's like it's just never really done that well. It's sort of like um, indigenous people in the older movies, particularly in the older movies, get portrayed as basically, uh, I would say the best way I could compare it to is like the same way. Oh, that's not a good example. They get compared to as the unspoken bad guy. That's the best way I could put it. They're just like bad. So it's like, oh, okay. Um, so anyway, it's an okay movie. I didn't really like it because I don't like the ending. I'm not gonna say what it is, just in case some of y'all do want to check it out. Um, what else is there? I think those are all the movies I watched. I'm pretty sure. So that's been most of my entertainment this week. Beyond that, I have been watching. So on Twitch, there is this channel called Insomniac, and it is, I guess it's in correspondence with. It's called EDC, and I can't remember if it stands for Electric Daisy Carnival or if it's something else. It is an electronic dance festival that takes place in Las Vegas. I know that much. But anyway, they do this program. I guess they've been doing lately. I'm not sure. It's called Virtual Raveathon, and I really like the host of it, and I like the. I guess you call them DJs. I don't know. I'm gonna say DJs that they pick for it, and it's always pretty well like shot and interesting to watch. And I've been watching that a lot this week. I've been watching a lot of those. And then having moments of like, oh, I could learn how to do this. Which means I'm really enjoying it. If I'm like in that place of like wanting to learn how to do what the people are doing, it's usually a pretty clear sign that I am entertained. And I just imagine that the equipment for those things must cost a lot. I don't know how. It's got to be expensive equipment. You know what I mean? All right. I still have to do this background here, and I think that I'm not going to touch it for today. I'm going to share this to the client and let them check it out, and then still figuring out what I'm going to do for this background. I don't know if I'm going to do something weird or special or whatever, but yeah, I just haven't figured it out yet. So I'm done inking main foreground, middle ground. Still have to do the background, and then I'll be doing colors, and then I'll be done. That's probably, just looking at the rate that I've been doing this, it's probably going to be, I would say it's probably going to be another week and a half, possibly. It depends on how long it takes me. Well, no. Okay, so I finished painting the commission for this is a commission for Patreon contributor Troy, and I finished painting that, and I'm going to be sending that off to him soon. And I think I'll have, and I still have the sketch that I need to do for Patreon contributor Danielle, and then I'll probably have the decks cleared, so to speak. I mean, other than the tarot cards. Those are the other things that I need to work on. All right, well, anyway, I hope that everything that's going on for y'all is going well. Hope you're staying safe, staying cozy, and, hope it's going well. And I will see y'all later, all right?